I will be working with three specific people this afternoon who are going to round off everything I'm going to be saying. They'll be providing you with even more detail on the points that I'll raise. They'll be very hands-on. So we have Philippe BESSEAU from Atlanbois. We have Annick FABBI from the association Energies 15 in the Cantal region of France, and we have Grégory ZABALA from Bois Energie 66 in the Occitania region, and I am Elodie PAYEN, and I'm in charge of project management for CIBE. So just a few words on our interprofessional association. Ours is an interprofessional association that brings together all of the wood energy interprofessional people. We're talking here about 150 companies in total, globally speaking, and they include people from the forestry world, from the wood resources world, and the energy world, design and development offices, project owners, for example. We'll be talking about wood energy, and we have lots of builders and operators for wood as a material. Our association is an interprofessional agency, as I said, and has existed for 2006. So we provide support, we provide coordination between the different professionals so that we can develop best practices in the field for all of our sector, both in terms of the quality of the products, in terms of the improvements of the combustion rates in the different boilers. And we have lots and lots of reference documents that we're looking to put together so that we have a sector that is always more efficient. So we have 4 working groups that we call commissions. Each of them work on the different aspects within our sector. The first one, for example, focuses on sourcing. The second one pays particular attention to providing support, legally speaking, to project managers and also legal and fiscal support. Then we have a third one that focuses on everything that revolves around technological improvements and maintenance on the different installations. And then we have a last one that is the one that we're going to home on in today. This concerns wood energy management, everything that concerns the local development of wood and energy. So, 4 main parts to our presentation today. First of all, I'll give you a general overview about what we mean by wood energy management, our objectives, the structures that we're looking to set up, and I'll say a few words about what we call the Wood Energy Management Commission, and also I'll talk about the way in which our wood energy moderators or leaders or managers work. Then we'll move on and we'll focus on support to the structure when it comes to sourcing. Other people will give presentations at this moment. We'll talk about the wood energy managers and the role they play in the local regions, all the actions that they take within the forestry and wood sector, also everything that we do to promote quality. And here we refer to the ISO 9001 certification and also the Wood Plus quality approach. And last but not least, we'll focus on all of the monitoring, the supervision that we do for the sourcing of wood energy in order to optimize everything that concerns it. When it comes to wood energy management, what are we actually talking about? Wood energy management, well, it's all made up of organizations that, let's say, since the 1990s have looked to exit from the vicious circle of wood energy at the time. In other words, there were all these heating units, boilers and furnaces that were hesitating about turning towards renewable energy because they were scared that there wouldn't be enough local resources, and those who potentially could supply the resources didn't necessarily want to because they didn't really see whether it had a future or not. So why make any effort? Because maybe there wouldn't be any projects. So our wood energy management process wanted to promote automatic wood heating solutions to the industrialists, the farmers, and also the stakeholders in the market, and to encourage the wood producers and all of the different stakeholders to come together and talk to each other. So initially speaking, we served as a local relay to focus on national and local wood energy projects to gradually bring everybody together around the table. So what looks very promising when it comes to wood energy management? Well, globally speaking, we tend to work with associations that bring together different professions between the wood and forestry sector. We work with associations in the renewable energy sector. It could be Energy 15 that we referred to earlier, and Wood Energy 6. We also work with lots of forestry communities, in other words, communities where they own forestry land, and also associations in a farming setup. CIVAM is an organization, a French organization that brings together several associations. Secondly, we also work with local authorities or similar organisations that have gradually developed assignments to manage wood and energy. Here we've got the ALEC, the Energy and Climate Agencies, lots of local agencies, but also départements, regions, and a certain number of national and regional parks. Here on the map, you can see where they're all located. They're based pretty much all around France. The amount of action that they take tends to vary in terms of the scale. Sometimes when you see a big a big green circle, that means that they take action at a regional level, and the light green circles show smaller structures that tend to take action at the level of a French département. These are all structures that are funded by regional delegations of the ADEME, the French Agency for Environment and Energy Management. And so it basically means that they play a very neutral role, and it doesn't cost them money in their local area because they're able to provide advice without there being any monetary interest for the builders or for the design and development office. I repeat, they are totally neutral. Wood energy can be a solution, but not necessarily always the best solution. So the idea is to always put together consistent projects in the local areas. In terms of our targets, we've identified 100 managers. We have over 100 wood energy managers, and 70% of them are members of our association. So there is a certain amount of membership within our professional structure. When it comes to the methodology that they adopt, they have three different types of approaches. One, they communicate, enhance awareness, and provide training. Two, they attempt to reinforce the sourcing solutions and bring about new sourcing solutions. And they also provide support and personalized, tailored support for those who've got projects for setting up new heating systems in their local environment. Just to give you an idea as to how things go from a communication perspective, it's pretty basic, but it works very, very well. There are lots of site visits, information meetings, information documents that are produced on all of the different types of data. It can be the financial aid that can be provided, the different types of fuels, for example. Also training that is provided to the fitters and the local authority technicians, and the setting up of what we call boiler unit observatories, so that it's possible to clarify on the different types of installation that exist in the local area and the different types of energy power levels. So with my three colleagues, as I said, we'll give you some more detailed insights, but just a few pieces of general information. Our aim at the end of the day is to provide basic information on the different types of fuel for those who are in charge of sourcing the fuels, to explain exactly how the preparation of all of the different types of raw materials takes place. We take them to sites where they can see what the best practices are for producing the raw material. Also, the visit to other local areas to see their sourcing systems, to look at the different types of equipment and materials that they have, and the different decision-making processes that need to be made. That way, among sources, they all talk the same language. And also what we do is enable those people who've got a project to set up a new heating system to be in contact with one another, and to be in contact with the people who can potentially source the raw material for them. By way of illustration, if we look at the support that we provide for the sourcing solution, what do? Well, a wood energy manager, first of all, has to fully understand the demand, the requirement, understand all the potential materials that can be sourced, understand the medium and long-term needs, understand the local area, and all of the different areas where the raw materials can be drawn from. Now, in order to provide support for the development of what is available and is out there and what the actual demand is made up of. You need to take into account the current raw material that is available, look at the quality, and then create a link between this raw material and further downstream the demand that is coming from the local authority or local organisation. Just one piece of additional information before I pass the floor over to my colleagues. The support that is provided for heating systems and the people who want to manage a project, the manager will play a role at the level of each of the different stages that you have on the screen. You'll have the idea, then you'll have the feasibility study, and initially speaking, a certain amount of information will need to be provided on wood energy, seeing different heating units, understanding the raw material, and understanding the opportunity, and providing an initial study with figures as to the technique and the financing of a wood energy project, providing the specifications and providing information on all of the financial subsidies that can be provided. These are often questions that are very important for a person with a project. Prior to the work, the wood energy manager can explain all the kinds of legal and financial setups that are possible, set up a sourcing solution, and of course, organize the request for funding. Then while the actual installation is being set in place, support can be provided in terms of follow-up. We have one of my colleagues, for example, who's here to answer questions on this if necessary. And what's important at this stage, of course, is to look at the potential sourcing and the improvements that can be made further down the line. A short focus now on what we call the opportunity memo. This is something that is important during the course of a project to simply ensure that we're on the right track. It's a form of KPI. What is important is to visit the buildings, to carry out a study as to the heating capacity of the building, and to fully understand the project, receive information on the investment costs, and all the other information related to the building. My last slide concerns wood energy management. If you would like to know more about where we are located and in your local area, if you're interested in meeting the wood energy managers, you can have this brochure and find the list of all of the managers on our website. So to help the managers, we've put together what we call a working group, which is the Wood Energy Management Commission. And as is the case today, our role is to promote the role of these wood energy managers, to share the tools and the best practices, and bring about a global vision so that the wood energy sector is able to develop at a local level. We have two chairpersons there, Natalie Brack and Grégory ZABALA. They are present here with me today, and I've left you my details on the screen if you would like any further information. So without further ado, let me pass the floor over to Philippe BESSEAU, who will talk about the regional actions and the link to the wood energy sector. Thank you very much, Philippe. I'd just like to check, are you able to hear me sufficiently? We can hear you. Okay, Elodie, I think you said virtually everything and we understood everything. It was all very, very clear. So I'm just going to focus briefly on the regional actions that are taken and the interprofessional roles that we play. As you can see, all of the different members of our profession, the regional structures, we all work together, and we're a kind of interface between the different associations. And Fibro France, for example, that is the federation that brings together all of the different professions at a national level. Then you've got all these French organizations that come together to take action at the level of the region. It's a kind of network that functions at the level of the region, so that gradually over time we're able to formalize the offer. It's called the Renewable Energy Network, and our role is to develop projects within projects from the different structures at a local level. And our aim also is to create links with all of the regional bodies and institutions, because we've talked about the ADEME, the French Agency for the Environment and for Energy Management, but you've also got the regional councils and a wide range of different structures at a local level, where we need to create links or bridges between them and the sourcing organizations, simply so that we can work out where we need to be present, where we can provide a form of leverage to promote wood energy. So our role mainly is one of coordination to develop actions, notably with the regional councils, as I've said, with consultations at regional levels. You've listed all the regions that are involved. We have a regional plan, for example, for wood and forestry in certain regions, and we've produced a certain number of documents also, and gradually over time, these all enable us to compile a lot of information that can be of use to people interested in working in the wood energy sector. And I would simply stress that we have this global and regional vision that enables us to make a viable contribution to any actions that are taken, but hand in hand with all of the local actors. We also organize wood energy commissions, and a lot of administrative people, a lot of companies that work in our sector take part in these commissions. It can be design and development offices, people who work with forestry commissions, it can be the installers, it can be the people who run and manage certain buildings. This is what is important. It's at a local level, we say we're going to bring everybody around the table, and where do we need to develop to be able to provide better assistance, and what kind of boilers or furnaces do people want? Do they want big systems, small systems? Do they want them with pellets, with farming solutions, with wood chips, and so on and so forth? And we, at our level, don't necessarily believe that we need to develop everything and anything under the sun. No, we think that there is space mainly for creating links and bridges between the different stakeholders, and then we need to listen to their needs and put together specific actions in relation to the resources that we can offer. And at the moment, we're focusing above all on project development, because in terms of the resources, we know that we've got a whole range of stakeholders and actors that can provide the resource, that can provide the studies. Now what we need is to get the ball rolling and make sure that the installations come into place. So Elodie, let's continue. So our role basically is to have a good understanding of the local network. You can only understand your targets if you know the local area as well. Here you've got an example of wood energy in the Pays de la Loire, in the Loire part of the country. Here you've got all the information on the domestic setup. On this map, you can see the different heating units. This has been put together by Theo, the local observatory for heating systems. And what's really interesting is that wood energy is something that people know so little about, and yet it's a very big organization. So we have to promote what we do. This is why we're working with these different local stakeholders and actors, so that we can give them a good understanding of how the wood energy sector can be developed. And to revert back to what you said earlier about the biomass regional shimmer, we enable people to have a vision as to how they can evolve in the future. Clearly at the moment, for example, what we would like to see, or rather we know there's the possibility for an evolution, an increase of 7,000 tons per year, given the resources that we've got, the forestry resources. If you look at wood industry and forest, we've put it in the same sector. We want to develop wood construction, it's wood building, it's part of the wood energy sector. So that will bring about more offshoots of the products. That will mean more wood for energy. But if we want to use this wood, well, then maybe we're not going to use forestry wood so much. Next, if the building sector doesn't evolve, or rather if the methods stay the same, then what we'll have set up and developed to help redeploy and renew the forests, notably because with climate change, we see that a lot of trees are dying and need to be replanted. In that case, we'd only be collecting wood energy, and we wouldn't be adding to the logging wood. So we'd be using wood that we're preparing for the future for the wood energy sector. Whatever happens, we've put together a certain number of actions so that we can better optimize and valorize the green chain, because we in the Loire region, we've got a specific type of countryside, and we think rather than composting everything, well, there's a lot of wood in this potential composting material, let's use it. We haven't got lots of big heating systems that could use it, so we're better off doing the sorting beforehand. So we've put together many actions, we've invested the money to be able to do the sorting to better use this type of wood. Elodie. So just to conclude, the aim is to work collectively together to deploy the leverage that we've got, to work with public authorities as well, so that we're able to create the right kind of leverage. We want to help for renewing for the future and develop the amount of wood for logging that is made available, but also the wood in the forest, the wood, for example, as well from hedging that we can potentially use. We basically want to optimize on the investments as well to create the right production sites if necessary. Next, of course, our role is to also consolidate what exists. That's very important. If we want to develop this wood energy sector, we've got to make sure that it's healthy across the board. And we've got to make sure that we're working with people who are flying the flag, who are conveying the message that we're not the only people, that it gradually trickles down. And we want to gradually make it possible to develop projects. So basically, at the end of the day, we know pretty much all of the streets where heating networks are possible. So next in the field with the different people who've got the know-how, how can we develop these projects legally and so on, financially and so on and so forth. And the same is true for companies. We simply need to make sure that everything is in place so that we can develop these projects.
So that's our role in line with resources and with producers. So that's it. As far as I'm concerned, I think I finished. Okay, I'm going to hand over now to Annick, who is not Annick BESSEAU, but Annick FABBI, who's going to talk to us about the quality of fuels, the type of certifications, 9001, and CBQ Plus. Hello, everybody. This is Annick FABBI. Can everybody hear me? So I'm having problems because the connection is rather intermittent and rather random. So I've got some micro cuts. So tell me if I cut off, if it happens. I'm sorry about that. So I'm going to talk to you about certification. So wood heat quality plus, CBQ plus. I'm in charge of a structure called Energy 15. It's in the Cantal area. I've been doing that since 1995. And so we've done an awful lot of things for wood energy, to promote wood energy, and we're continuing to do that. And as a specialist of supply, I'm also in charge of the ISO 9001 certification, and I'll explain how that works in France. There are quite a few certifications. So for CBQ Plus, this is certification that is ISO 9001. But above all, it's about an association bringing together suppliers of wood fuel for automatic heating plants. And for us, above all, as people promoting this idea, it's a tool for suppliers who are certified. This means that we can follow calls for tender. We can look at price revision indices. We can do this for customers. It's something that provides technical modules as well with respect to forest regulations, so that we don't forget anything. It also means that we have updated regulation data sheets, notably thanks to the CIBE Association. It's also something that provides us with computer tools. In fact, we're currently working on a software program. But above all, it means that support is provided to all of these companies in this sector. And we've got regional actors, including myself. I'm in charge of Aix-Auvergne, so that's part of the Rhône-Alpes. So CBQ Plus is ISO 9001 certification plus certification by the CBQ Association, but it also means technical tools with step-by-step support. So CBQ Plus suppliers are companies that distribute wood energy directly to heating plants. We're not talking about brand purchasing. These are companies that work directly with heating plants. The fuels taken into account by CBQ Plus are shredded wood, but also chips and bulk pellets. There's optional certification, which is called PEFC certification, and she has cut off. Okay, move on to the next slide, please. So why ISO 9001 certification? The sound has been cut again. Yeah, yes, there was a mini cut, yes. So I can see it, it tells me on the screen. Sorry, let me start again. So why ISO 9001? The objective was to go further than simple product certification. There are many for wood energy, the EN+, DIN+, NF. There are also different charters that have emerged over the years. So ISO 9001 is the NEC plus ultra. You can't go higher than that. Above all, it gives you recognition. It's ISO recognition, so international. So CBQ Plus is a supplier of energy, of wood energy. Wood energy that is a top quality. And there are many requirements that have to be met and regulatory requirements. And some are not very well known. Companies are often not very big, so they don't have much time to look at what's happening from the point of view of regulations. So they have to provide a product and services that are compliant with the customer's needs. The customer is king, as we say in France, but there are some specific requirements when it comes to silos, supplies, and certified suppliers have to follow these regulations. It's about making sure that customers are satisfied through questionnaires. This allows us as an association to have positive or negative feedback and to rectify things if necessary. It's also about collecting, making a note of, and increasing customer satisfaction. So these 4 points define the quality management system. This is the basis of ISO 9001. So what does CBQ Plus represent? In 2020, it represented 1.9 million tons of shredded wood, over 2,000 shredded wood heating plants representing 80,000 tons of pellets and 25,000 pellet heating plants delivered. So we're present in 10 regions. So we're talking about 75 certified companies, 53 of whom are also PAFC certified. We're talking about 155 dedicated platforms, 500 dedicated machines, and 550 qualified people. So you can see this on the map. There are regions in white that are covered by different structures. There are regions that are currently just starting out where we carry out events or different missions when there is a need from the point of view of the supplier. And as there is support from ADEME, the idea is to cover the whole of the country for people who are interested. So 75 certified companies, 155 dedicated platforms, over 1 billion euros invested over the past 5 years. So here's a very complex diagram that shows just how complicated the supply of wood energy is, with differences according to specific processes, so that each person can have the right fuel. So in CBQ Plus, the sizes, the companies are different, the reservoirs are different, composting, different pellets, forest wood. So we're talking about small companies with just one person, 2 companies with multiple platforms, and many more members of staff. So CBQ Plus guarantees for its customers. Well, they take into account all wood fuel, so shredded wood. So following of associated regulations, it's a system that is adapted to small community heating plants, but also big industrial heating plants or eco-generation. All sources of pellets are covered by the certification. It's about securing supply with visibility of stock, maintenance of equipment, proper training for personnel. Even for small companies with no employees, it's important to be able to manage stock so they are never out of stock. It's all about following subcontractors with partners who are assessed on a yearly basis. This is especially important for very small companies that subcontract an awful lot. They need to have reliability too. So CBQ Plus makes sure that companies cover all of these points. It ensures traceability, quality control, so traceability, we're talking about products right along the production system, regular in-house quality checks, humidity measurements in standardized tanks, for example, external quality checks carried out by an independent laboratory. So twice a year, all fuels are analyzed in the laboratory. Twice a year, so all of the company's fuels are analyzed. So for PFC, we've got sustainable management of forests with compliance with forest regulations. And optionally, you can also have PEFC certification on top of ISO 9001 certification. So it provides support, local support for companies. CBQ Plus works with those involved in wood energy. In my organization, there are two people. Bois is the same thing. Pro ETF, no. They're not a structure like, sorry, no, I'm getting that wrong. They are a structure, but they don't do any pre-feasibility studies. So Elodie gave you the map of France with the different wood energy stakeholders. Some of these are also CBQ Plus stakeholders. So it's about working with local trained people. CIBE, ProAirTerre, there are different stakeholders in France. Each one is checked by CBQ Plus. So we carry out in-house audits, in-house controls. And then there's a check carried out that all of the processes and procedures are being followed properly. There are external assessments carried out by an external certifier. So we also work with people running the sector. As Elodie said, the support is neutral, objective. Opportunity studies for heating plants are carried out, feasibility studies are carried out, investment studies, validation of models, contract models are carried out. There's help with the consultation of suppliers. Different stakeholders from the forestry industry are brought together. There is help with disputes when there are problems, and we can then certify suppliers of wood fuels. There we are. Thank you. Thank you, Annick. So I'm now going to hand over to Grégory ZABALA from Bois Energie 66. We're going to look at how to optimize supplies. Yes, hello, my name is Grégory ZABALA. I work for Bois Energie 66, which is an association. So it's it's a mission that is carried out every year since 2018. The association was created in 1996. And what I can add to what has already been said is that these structures, well, we were suppliers of wood energy to begin with. So there's been an increase in heating plants, and suppliers were not there to feed into these installations. So between 1996 and 2017, we were suppliers. So it's a field that we know very well. And we continue to help those who supply wood energy. We're on the other side of the fence, though. So we've set up a tool, a monitoring tool. The objective is to follow installations and to help users to follow and monitor what's happening from one year to the next. So there are different objectives behind the specifications. One for us is to know what the consumption is on an annual basis. The idea, just to give you an example, so between 2010 and 2011, the objective is to see what the consumption for a specific county was and the associated power. So there are fluctuations, there's especially an increase, and we look at the installations that are working for different reasons, because there has been a breakdown or maintenance operations are being carried out, or the building is not being used. Or for the last year, we saw a drop of less than 10% with respect to the next year. And we look at and this was the impact of the health crisis. So we're looking at -10, -50% compared with what was planned, because some buildings have been completely closed down and not being used because of the health crisis. So another objective is to be able to compare actual consumption of the current year with previous years and the forecasts drawn up by the office. So there's an illustration here where in green we can see the wood consumption. You can see that there's a change over the course of the years. There's an increase in wood-based power, and there's a drop here. So this is the effect of the health crisis, but also it's an effect of the quality. There was a shutdown for quite some time, so there was a compensation afforded by fossil fuels. And a last point, there are other points, but when it comes to monitoring, it's very important to carry out a technical and economic analysis of these installations. So here we've got the same graph illustrated from a financial point of view. So we provide all of the financial information and we can calculate savings made over the heating season. And you can see the impact of wood prices. It represents over half of the cost of fuel with respect to the reference solution. So, you know, what would have happened if there was no wood? And then you've got the fossil fuel share that represents 60, 70% over the course of a year. So this means that we can see how many savings were made over how much time and when the heating plant has become profitable. So as a running structure, we're there to help heating plants, help them to get trained in order to provide fuel quality. They need to know how to recognize a quality fuel, a fuel that is in line with the installation that they're running. So we help them with humidity, grain size distribution. We help them to roll out quality-based approaches. We're also there to help them with the rollout itself. And we're also there to encourage them to set up supply contracts to guarantee that they have the right kind of fuel for their heating plant. And so that they know how to manage problems with their suppliers. So the idea is to anticipate problems. So if there are new installations and new suppliers, then they need to be able to work with them to plan ahead for new stocks. But we can also observe when we look at the situation, we can also observe, for example, that there might have been some pressure or tension at the end of the year, a supplier with no more dry fuel. So you can, then it's important to understand why, whether there were specific needs or additional needs. So we can decide whether it's important to increase their supplies or not. So there are many roles that we have. So earlier on, we were talking about our role before projects, you know, how we can help with the development of installations. We also provide monitoring, and we can also provide information so that future projects can be improved. So, for example, the delivery mode might not be adapted. It might be a good idea to make such an improvement. But also for silos, you know, is it a good idea to have a hopper or not? We can adapt humidity and grain size distribution. We know that such heating plant will need such type of humidity. We know whether it needs to be drier or more damp. We know, you know, that it's better to have 30% humidity for certain systems and grain size, sometimes bigger, sometimes smaller. This is all based on experience. And the last point, we need to set up a supply contract. We can help with them to set up a supply contract and make sure that the supplier actually follows what is set out in the contract. So this is the kind of thing that we do. So thank you very much, Grégory. So I'll now take over for the conclusion. Thank you to the three of you for your illustrations. You know, you've really told us what it involves. So I just wanted to go back to the assets of wood energy promoters. What do? Well, they promote wood energy. They make sure that projects are consistent. They provide support to project owners with their heating plant projects. They provide help with the structuring of fuel supplies. They make sure that the supplies are in line with the existing and future heating plants. They also monitor installations when they are operating, but also when they're just at the project stage. And they create a link. So that's maybe the first asset that they have, their most important mission. They provide the link between local stakeholders in the sector and professionals. You know, they provide information about expertise, local expertise. So, you know, get to know them and tell others about them. So there's a link to the internet site where you will find out more, and there's a directory that is provided on a regional basis. I'm just looking at the chat to see whether there are any specific questions with respect to the presentations. And unless I'm making a mistake, there was just one question drawn up by Natalie. How do you manage the destruction of orchards, especially when galvanized iron wires are inside them, prevent the wood from being used? So Philippe BESSEAU answered this. So wires are not problems for orchards. We use pallets. There are shredders that break up the material. So sometimes it's better to do this than burn things locally. So that was the problem brought up by Madame Driot, Mrs. Driot. You know, the profitability of taking this wood to platforms that have the right equipment for shredding, that can do the sorting, can separate the wire from the wood, for example. And to my knowledge, there's a working group working on, there isn't a working group working on this. There is a working group that's focusing on how to improve hedge management, but that's not really the same thing. So I can't really answer that question more specifically. And it's more of a global question with respect to the difficulty of having the right kind of profitability. I can hear you saying something, Philippe. Yeah, I just wanted to add to what you've said. Physically, it's very easy to remove the metallic part from the wood. What's more complicated for this kind of wood is the residue that you can find on it. You can have treatment products, so residues of treatment products that can create corrosion. So you've got to have the right kind of heating plant to be able to use this kind of wood. And very often, it's, you know, there are dilutions that are made to use this kind of wood, because alone, this kind of wood, if it's not diluted with something else, can be problematic. Thank you, Philippe. Thank you. So that's something that needs to be taken on board. Patrick Renard was talking about conflicts of use. Yes, I'd just like to say something about that. In the certification, the ISO 9001 certification, as I've said, the first thing that we look at is the compliance with regulations, especially forest regulations. We can't certify people who don't comply with forest regulations and the sustainable management of such forests. So there are management documents, there are plans and other sustainable management documents that have to be read and followed. Thank you for that answer. Annick, so it's a question of resource, it's a question of sustainability. So, you know, what you get from forests is very important. That wasn't the real subject that we were talking about today, but it's something that's very important. So it's something that you can find out more about on our site if you want to have a look. So, you know, contact us if necessary. Are there any other questions about the subject of the session? So I have the impression that there are no more questions. So I'd like to thank you for your attention. Can I remind you that we are available if you have any questions? You've got our details, our contact details. Please feel free to contact us. Annick, Grégory, Philippe, thank you for adding to what I had to say today. Thank you. Goodbye. Goodbye.